The big plan before Sandokan. Is Yaman and Demet Özdemir's breakup a publicity plot? Welcome to my YouTube channel, Secrets Behind the Stars. Before we jump in, hit subscribe and support the channel, my friends. Is everything as simple as it looks in Yaman's world right before Sandokan? Could Demet Özdemir's pause on social media and her carefully timed return, right when the rollout began, really be random? Are we witnessing a genuine split, or has the fog of silence and uncertainty been crafted as part of a bigger PR blueprint? Tonight, we're unpacking the chatter about a staged split around Yaman and Demet Özdemir, the moments behind the curtain, and the master plan being whispered about in the lead-up to Sandokan. In recent years, Can's career hasn't just been about scripts and sets. His move from Turkey to Italy reshaped him from a local idol into a global figure, and with that came the kind of attention that follows every breath, every glance, every choice. That's why talk of a supposed rift with Demet didn't stay trapped in tabloids, it slipped into mainstream conversation. The rumors didn't arrive quietly either. They clustered right before the bold, international unveiling of Sandokan, arriving like a question hanging in neon over the skyline. Coincidence, or choreography? When we line up the moments, they look less like randomness and more like a strategy board. Demet stepping away from social media, only to glide back onto Instagram while Sandokan's promo drumbeat grew louder, Can refusing to feed the fire with comments on his private life, the couple's absence from each other's public narratives, with no official confirmation that anything ended. Piece these parts together and one question keeps echoing. Are we looking at a true breakup, or the quiet footprints of a calculated publicity plan? Look closer at the trajectory of Can's brand and you start to see how little is left to chance. He exploded in Turkey, then rooted himself in Italy, turning into not just an actor but a global brand with a carefully calibrated image. Advertising deals, international collaborations, and a high-stakes production like Sandokan demand more than good lighting, they demand discipline, foresight, control. And in that kind of arena, your private life is never fully private, it becomes a set piece, a message, a lever used with precision. From the start, Can and Demet navigated visibility like seasoned pilots. They weren't flaunting every kiss, nor pretending nothing existed between them. Their outings were measured, their posts selective, their moments together never allowed to overshadow the work. That restraint became even more pronounced in the months before Sandokan. The quiet that unfurled when Demet eased off Instagram was quickly interpreted as a breakup. But was it truly an ending, or a strategic hush? Consider the timeline. While Demet dimmed her public presence, Can was locked in physical preparation, long days on set, international scheduling chess, and a carefully timed wave of press that had to crest at the exact right moment. Producers and PR teams know the risks. When a star's romance steals the spotlight, the project becomes the second headline, and no one in a boardroom likes that. The unspoken rule is simple: in the months before a major launch, keep the story tight. Let the audience fixate on the role, the transformation, the craft. Romantic noise invites misinterpretation, inflames social media tribes, and pulls attention in directions the campaign can't control. Against that backdrop, Demet's withdrawal reads less like heartbreak and more like a strategic reduction of visibility. Let's not forget, neither Can nor Demet has stamped anything with a definitive statement. No declarations, no confirmations, just a practiced, layered silence. And in show business, silence isn't just absence, it's a tactic. You let the rumor mill spin, and the conversation expands without you having to say a word. The audience does the marketing while the projects gather momentum. It's a dance as old as red carpets and as modern as a Pin story. What truly turned heads, though, was Demet's return. No clarifying essay, no wall of text, no dramatic video, just one image, posted without a caption, without context. Yet timing can be louder than any caption. This quiet reappearance synced perfectly with Sandokan's promotional pulse, as Can's name began ricocheting again across international outlets. It didn't feel like the glow that follows a clean break, it felt like controlled visibility, calibrated to hit at the most useful moment. The comments that followed split into familiar camps. One side said, "There's no breakup, this is strategic distance," while the other insisted, "It's a publicity breakup, they're shielding their brands. And that phrase, publicity breakup, began to set like wet ink. It describes a situation where the relationship hasn't necessarily ended, but both parties act as if they've stepped back, allowing professional narratives to breathe without personal shadows. A tactic especially tempting before huge releases, designed not to deceive but to direct attention. If you've watched Can navigate the Italian spotlight, you know he's no stranger to pressure. He's rebuilt himself physically for roles, sold a precisely honed charisma across markets, and maintained a balance between accessibility and mystery, enough to keep fans close, but not so close that the work gets swallowed by the personal. Demet, for her part, has her own gravitational pull, an actress with a polished aura, a public poised between elegance and warmth. Together, they form a narrative that the public is hungry to read into, and that hunger is both a blessing and a hazard. Industry insiders will tell you that these decisions aren't made on instinct alone. There are meetings. There are calendar grids and crisis plans, contingency maps drawn in quiet rooms. When a campaign like Sandokan is on the horizon, every variable gets examined. What posts live, what posts die, who appears where, and at what angle. Few things are left to chance because chance is expensive. If a romance becomes a magnet, it can pull an entire promotional galaxy off course. We also can't ignore the layered history in the public imagination. For many fans, Can and Demet are forever linked by early on-screen chemistry that blurred into off-screen speculation and back again. Over time, that bond shifted shape, sometimes clear, sometimes hazy, but always compelling. That's why when Demet pressed pause and Can emptied the stage of personal commentary, it didn't just feel like absence, it felt like an intentional curtain lowering. The script demanded focus. And focus, in the language of modern fame, is curated silence. Of course, it's possible there were real tensions, real distance, even disagreements about what should be aired and what should be hidden. Two people with careers this loud don't live simple lives. But even true friction can run parallel to strategy. The world often demands a label, together or not, broken or unbroken, while the reality lives in nuance. Public and personal timelines rarely match, and the smarter teams choose the professional timeline first. So what do we actually have? A stretch of time where Demet scaled back her presence. A run of weeks where Can said nothing about private matters. No formal acknowledgement of an ending, despite a rising wave of headlines that wanted one. Then, a delicate re-entry from Demet, barely a whisper, placed flawlessly on the calendar. And all of it unfolding as Sandokan's sails unfurled. Think of this like sound engineering. When the music swells, you lower the ambient noise. You don't erase it, you dial it down so the melody is unmistakable. With Sandokan poised as a defining international push, it makes sense that the orchestration would emphasize Can's transformation, discipline, and range, his swordplay and grit, his presence in intense landscapes and sharper narratives, rather than the chapters of his private life that tabloids love to stretch. Fans notice details. Rings absent, rings returned, mutual follows intact, then quiet, old photos untouched, but no new joint snapshots. Nothing is random in the age of receipts, and yet nothing here screams, final. If anything, it whispers, we are choosing when and how you see us. That whisper is the hallmark of a controlled story. Even the language surrounding Demet's return bent toward intention. No brand tags. No coordinated cross-promo. Just presence. For a public figure, presence without explanation is a kind of statement. It allows everyone else to supply the meaning, which is the cleverest PR of all, getting the whole internet to write your subtext, for free, in 1,000 different ways. From another angle, consider how merciless the spotlight can be. If Can had stood on a press line and addressed the relationship directly, the story would have fractured into headlines that wrestled with each word, starving the series of oxygen. If Demet had posted clarifications, she would have become the narrative, as if her life existed to annotate his. Instead, the story stayed lopsided in the best way for a launch, heavy on the work, light on the personal. That brings us back to the notion of a publicity breakup. It doesn't mean a love story is fake or over, it means the public version is placed in a waiting room. The two people at the center continue living whatever truth they're living, complicated, evolving, imperfect. While the outside world is given a simpler picture to keep the campaign on track. It's not kindness or cruelty, it's control. And yet, there's emotion in every calculated move. Demet's quiet, if it was chosen, still required restraint. Can's refusal to elaborate, even as microphones angled toward him, still required discipline. These are human costs of a professional gamble. The audience might forget that every quiet period has beating hearts inside it, choosing what to bear and what to share. As Sandokan pushes forward, the reward for this strategy becomes obvious. The conversation orbits the production, the scale, the look, the energy, the risk. Can's image is reframed as the dedicated lead, sculpted for the role. Demet's image remains intact, elegant, self-possessed, a woman who doesn't need to explain herself to stay luminous. Together or apart, both protect their positions on the chessboard. If there's a future reveal, an interview, a joint appearance, a photo that settles the guessing, it will surface on their timing, not ours. If there's a real fracture, we might only learn about it long after the dust of the campaign has settled. Or perhaps the ambiguity will remain the point, a reminder that celebrities tell us stories we can cling to without ever fully opening the door to the rooms where the truth lives. For now, the picture holds. A muted public romance, an amplified professional narrative, and a calendar aligned with intention. The clues suggest a plan rather than an accident. Whether you call it a publicity breakup or a protective pause, the effect is the same, the work speaks first. And in an industry where attention is the only currency that matters, that choice might be the most romantic thing of all, a quiet promise to the craft, and to each other, to keep the flame from being burned out by the wind of speculation. So keep your eyes on the rollout, the interviews, the flawless timing of posts that say very little and somehow say everything. Watch how Sandokan moves, how Can moves with it, and how Demet holds her ground with the elegance of someone who knows that even silence can be a headline. Maybe this is an ending. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a chapter that was always meant to be written in invisible ink until the right light reveals it. You've been watching Secrets Behind the Stars, where we read between the lines so you don't have to. Subscribe, stay close, and tell me in the comments, do you believe in coincidence, or are we witnessing a masterclass in PR, crafted by Kenyaman and Demet Özdemir, just in time for Sandokan?